Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, today I want to talk about Devil Fruit Awakenings, but before we get into this topic today, I want to let you guys know again about my Discord. If you don't know what it is, if you want to know what it is, check out the link in the description. But anyway, in chapter 882 of One Piece, we learned for sure that Katakuri has an awakened Mochi special Paramecia Devil Fruit. If you were thinking that Luffy didn't stand a chance, now you have even more reason to believe that. On top of everything else that Luffy has to deal with, Katakuri has the ability to transform the world around Luffy into Mochi. So in an extent, the world around Katakuri is an extension of Katakuri. He can use it as though it was part of his own body. And so being the second confirmed awakened Paramecia type user aside from Doflamingo, we start to have a pattern formed. Both Doflamingo and Katakuri awaken in very similar ways, Doflamingo being able to turn the world around him into strings as opposed to Mochi. But even beyond these two confirmed awakenings outside of potential zone awakenings, there's other characters that have done similar things, and you could almost go so far as to think that perhaps they showed off awakening without labeling it. I'm talking about characters like Crocodile. Crocodile told us back in the Alabasta arc that he had uncovered uses for his Devil Fruit. He basically mastered his Devil Fruit, and he showed off pretty much the same exact ability to turn the world around him into sand. He called it Ground Death. Now it's worth throwing out there that he led us to believe that he achieved this ability by essentially dehydrating the ground until it's turned into sand. But now, given that we know what certain Paramecia type Devil Fruits awaken as, you could almost call this, or you could almost speculate, that what Crocodile was in fact doing was showing off his awakening, that he had awakened his Logia Sand Devil Fruit. Also potentially hints at Logia type Devil Fruits such as Crocodile's awakening in the same way. I believe it is also important to point out that Katakuri and Doflamingo, as well as Crocodile, all pretty much did the same thing when they awakened, which is they put their hand on the ground. Oda draws this in a very similar way between all three of them. And we've actually seen another character do this same exact pose and do the same sort of thing, and that was Aokiji during Marineford. And with this being kept in mind, now this is so much harder to be sure of, right? Because if Aokiji freezes the earth, right, it would look pretty much the same as an awakening. What's really strange about Crocodile, Katakuri, as well as Doflamingo is you can't just turn the world around you into Mochi or into strings. It doesn't work that way. So when this happens, your first thought is, what is going on? But when it comes to Aokiji, if he awakens in the same way, you could actually freeze the earth. And it would look very similar, probably, to changing the very nature of the earth itself into ice or into cold, whatever. The only way to be exactly sure what it is Aokiji was doing is if you waited for the ground itself to thaw, if that even happens. Because if you simply freeze something, if you warm it up, then you'll get what you originally had. But if you change something too cold, to ice, once you can't ever return it back to normal. Just the same as once something is turned into string or it's turned into Mochi, unless there's something that we don't know going on here, it's forever a completely different thing. But if this is indeed Aokiji's awakening, then I think Punk Hazard would make a ton of sense. Punk Hazard, the island whose climate completely changed with the fight of Akainu versus Aokiji, half the island burning, the other half freezing. If this was in fact the awakenings of both Akainu and Aokiji, then basically what Akainu did is turn half the island into magma itself, which over time slowly cooled, but is still on fire. And then the other half of the island now turned into ice or turned into cold, and honestly doesn't seem as though it's warming up that much either. But there's also a few other characters which have shown the potential to already be awakened Devil Fruit, Paramecia type Devil Fruit users. I'm talking about Stroizen. Stroizen, who had the amazing ability to turn Big Mom's entire castle, change its very nature into sponge cake. The castle is no longer composed of whatever it was composed of before. It is now forever sponge cake. On one hand, this power is already extremely similar to what he could already do with his Devil Fruit. But the extent of it is what is truly amazing. But it seems really possible that what Stroizen is showing off here is his Devil Fruit awakening. Even someone like Cracker, who had the ability to produce biscuit soldiers out of seemingly just the ground itself. In this case, you could potentially argue that what he is in fact doing is manipulating the crumbs in the ground itself and then forming them into things, but it's also possible that he's changing the very nature of the ground itself into biscuits. Again, it's worth pointing out that Streusen made direct contact with the thing that he wanted to transform. In the case of Cracker, however, he didn't. He just seemed to clap his hands. But anyway guys, with all of these examples of devil fruits potentially awakening in the very same way, even devil fruits of different classes such as Logia and Paramecia, then it becomes easier and easier to speculate that this might also be what Luffy's awakening is. Literally, just as Doflamingo said, affecting the world with his devil fruit, changing its very nature. As Flying Panda put it recently, and a lot of people have put it in the past, a world of rubber. Now this isn't exactly what I want to speculate here today, this has been speculated before, and there's really not much that can be added to it because it is as straightforward as it could possibly be given the definition Doflamingo gave us for what an awakening is. What I really want to ask is, what is awakening? How are they able to do this? As I've already basically said guys, this isn't the same as covering the earth with your devil fruit ability. You're changing the very nature of the world around you. This is some mystical shit. And when it comes to powers within One Piece, even if we don't have a full explanation now, we expect at some point in the future Oda to make it make sense. Even for things that aren't necessarily realistic, like devil fruits. They make sense in some parts because of the world and the powers that Oda has given to this world. That there are magical devil fruits which when eaten give this ability. And then later we're going to get further explanation of the devil fruits itself and why they even exist and how this process even starts. When it comes to Haki, Oda originally showed Haki all the way back at nearly the first chapter of the series when Shanks appears to have used Conqueror's Haki against the Sea King. And then later on in the Sky Pier arc when the Sky Priests were able to use Mantra, which is essentially Observation Haki, and it's not until the time skip and then Oda further delved into what this actually is. Right now, the powers of awakening exist. They are there. But as for why they are there, we don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that we should expect some sort of realistic answer. Realistic answer within the confines of the fictional One Piece universe. And so guys, I believe that I might have mentioned this in the past, but I want to mention it again here because I think it's been a very long time. But I wonder if this has something to do with the similarities shared between what is going on with Devil Fruit Awakenings and what it takes place when a Devil Fruit user consumes a Devil Fruit in the first place. I ask you, the world itself changing its very nature seems pretty mystical, but have we seen something like this happen before in a different context? And the answer to this is yes, because whenever a Devil Fruit user consumes a Devil Fruit in the first place, the very nature of their body changes. When it comes to Logia Devil Fruit users, or Paramecias such as Katakuri, or even someone like Luffy, their bodies are no longer normal. They are now made out of a completely different substance. Luffy's everything, his bones, his muscle, his tendons, his skin, everything is now made of rubber. Or even if a Devil Fruit user, their body itself, the structure of it isn't changed, they're able to do things with their body that they couldn't do before, like Doflamingo being able to produce strings almost endlessly from where. But let's stick with Katakuri, because I think with Katakuri, what I'm trying to say is best explained. Katakuri's body is completely composed of mochi. The Devil Fruit, the Mochi Mochi no Mi, changed the identity and structure of his body. So if Katakuri got full control over his Devil Fruit, or perhaps as an analogy that Jabra from CP9 used during the Enies Lobby arc, he got control of the devil within him, then it seems almost possible for him to then affect the world like the Devil Fruit affects him. This is kind of weird to think about, right? But the Devil Fruit seems to affect a certain container, the container being the human body who ate the Devil Fruit. But when a user awakens, they're able to manipulate and affect the world around them as though the world was part of themselves. So it's almost as like the scope of the container has grown. Not only is the Devil Fruit user the container for the Devil Fruit, but also the immediate world around them. This is extremely hard to visualize, but if you imagine the devil of the Devil Fruit being within a body, then perhaps an awakened Devil Fruit user actually can move that devil into the earth around them, but still control it as though the devil was within them. I think this would also fit with the necessity for a Devil Fruit user to have some sort of contact with the area that they want to affect with their awakening. The devil then moves from within their body, perhaps enlarges or expands into the world, the outside world. So when it comes to Doflamingo's devil fruit ability, his ability was the production of strings. And so when he awakens, he sets his hand on the ground. And if the ground is now really an extension of himself and he can control it as though it were part of him, then it shouldn't be no surprise, given what I've said earlier, that the ground then can produce strings just the same as Doflamingo can. Or in the case of Katakuri and his Mochi Devil Fruit, the world then becomes Mochi, just the same as what the Mochi Devil Fruit does to Katakuri himself. Or if this is the same is true for Luffy, the Devil Fruit, the Gomu Gomu no Mi changing him into rubber, then the same would apply to the world around Luffy, that it would become rubber. But anyway, for this absolutely extremely convoluted topic, this is the best explanation and rationalization I have for the awakenings that we have seen so far. But this, of course, doesn't have to be the case, and it doesn't have to be all-encompassing for all types of devil fruits. For example, zone-type devil fruits, I find it hard to envision them awakening in the same way. But of course, it is also possible. It'd be very strange, but, Jack touching the ground, and the world around him ends up becoming a beast, which he can control. But I guess if you take anything away from this video, it's that there should be some explanation for it. Even if every single devil fruit awakens, for the most part, in a unique way, there must be something that brings them all together, some sort of mechanism which defines it as an awakening, besides just existing and being improved devil fruit abilities. But anyway, guys, that's all I really had to say today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to check out links for Discord as well as Patreon in the description. Huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.